For example, 1/5 of US adults experienced mental illness in 2020. Autoimmune diseases affect more than 24 million people, and 93 million US adults are at high risk for serious vision loss. And hearing loss and vision loss, these things just happen as we get older, right? So I always love that quote that we're all temporarily abled, right? So in some way or another. This event is part of our Celebrate and Create program, where children engage in unique craft projects inspired by inclusive monthly celebration themes. And our facilitator today is Jessica Mayer. She specializes in disability awareness. Hi, Jessica. We're so happy to have you with us. You're also a board member here at Inform Your Community, and we so value you and your expertise. And we're also grateful to have Tyler here, helping with some tech issues and helping to monitor the chat. Hi, Tyler. I'm seeing Tyler's chat to me. It's very funny. Throughout the craft, if you have any questions or comments on the craft or topic, feel free to unmute yourself, talk or write in the chat. We'd love to see your work in progress, so feel free to show your project to the camera as well. And Stacy, of course, is helping us with our craft today. Master crafter, Stacy. Good morning, Stacy.
Good morning, Robbie. Good morning, Jessica. Good morning, Tyler. Good morning, everyone. So happy to have everybody here, and I'm very excited to have our craft today. Let me tell you some more about me. So I am a pale white woman with a yellow shirt and salt and pepper hair, I think they say. And I have a black background on. My pronouns are she and her. And it's great that you mentioned the temporarily abled, Robbie, because it's one of the things I wanted to talk about, because it's exactly what you said. We are all temporarily abled. You mentioned, sight and hearing. And of course, losses of sight and hearing doesn't affect everybody, but certainly those are things where definitely people are at risk for, but as they get older, that can happen as well. So we have to enjoy the privileges that we have. So I picked this craft in particular, and let me show you what the craft is going to look like. Let's see, there we go. So that is the craft we have today. And so we're making this little journal. And the reason I picked this craft is because journaling is such an important and positive thing that we can do to help us reflect on kind of who we are, what we're experiencing. If you have a bad day, you can journal, you can write in it. Journaling is not the end all be all. It's not going to solve all of our problems, but it is a fun thing to do. We can make it personalized. And a few years ago, I don't know if you folks remember, there was like a definite trend in journaling, and they have all these cool crafting supplies for journaling. So it's really a lovely thing to start doing, and scrapbooking. So we're going to show everybody how to go ahead and make their journal today. And if you're feeling down, you can write in your journal if you have a bad day, and sometimes that's especially helpful if what you're experiencing is something that other people wouldn't know about from the outside. And that's what our discussion of invisible disability is about today, is what we don't know somebody's experiencing as a disability, because we can't see it from the outside. And so journaling will help kind of reflect on those experiences, and especially if somebody else doesn't know, or if you don't feel like talking to somebody, or you're not able to talk to somebody, you can reflect on it in your journal. So we're going to give you some time to make your journal today, but first I want to tell you about the materials that you need. So everybody will want to have a scissor. Pretty simple. You want to have a scissor. Okay. So make sure you've got a scissor. I'll give you a little bit of time to go grab that. I recommend having some markers around. So it could be pretty typical, markers, could be Sharpies, as long as your parents are okay with permanent markers. Could be a pen. But it's good to have something handy like that. You'll also want to have around glue. You don't need it for the craft that we're going to do during our time today, but later on, after the craft, as you gather some embellishment materials, you're going to want to use glue for that. So that's kind of optional for right now. And then you're going to want to have some embellishments. So this is for everybody. You can either get these now, or you can do this after we do our event today. Is basically any kind of embellishments that are going to make it a personalized journals for you. So we gave you a few stickers, which we'll talk about, but also there's so many things you can add to a craft like this, right? So you can have your little gems. I have some little flowers here that you can add to a journal, other types of gems. You could favorite person in your family, or a a hero in your life, either a real person, or here's some leaves that we have, and you can actually use like pressed flowers or all kinds of embellishment. I also have a cool sticker book. I happen to like cats, so I have a sticker book. You can take stickers and put them on your journal in the end. So when we're done with this craft, there's an awful lot you can do in terms of embellishing it and making it much more personalized to you and who you are, right? As a reflection of yourself. So so those are some great items that everybody could think about gathering, especially though the scissor you're going to need, and if you want a marker or a pen, something like that. So for those of you who have our kit, we'll talk about that in a second, but some of you may not. So I want to let you know what you should go and get. So if you don't have our kit, you're going to want to get some kind of paper to fill your journal with. And it could be graph paper. It could be just plain copier paper. It could be loose leaf. Now, the added benefit of the loose leaf is that it already has holes in it, which is kind of neat. Because another thing you're going to need if you don't have our craft kit is a hole punch. Okay, so hole punches, they kind of look like this often, but sometimes they can look like this. If you have kids around, chances are you have some version of a hole punch. If you don't, I will show you a trick of how to do that later. Okay, but if you have a hole punch, I recommend it. Also, you want something for the cover. Okay, and if you have foam, that's what we're using today. So you can go ahead and find some foam pieces lying around your house. You might have some foam. Felt could work too, absolutely. A little harder to hole punch, but possible. You can also just use cardstock. If you have just some thick paper, certainly you can use construction paper as well. It's not as thick, but it's a little thicker than the kind of paper you would put on the inside. That's what you're going for with the cover, kind of different consistency. Or you probably have tons of old folders in your house. My kids dragged this one up for me. So just some old folder, they don't want to use it anymore. It's not their style. It's got some holes in it and tears. So we can use this as our cover. So basically, if you don't have our kit at home, those are some of the things you want. I'm going to mention two more items on that. One is you can also use cereal boxes. I was looking at some of the cereal boxes I had in the house, and I thought that's kind of retro funny, right? And fun, like a Cheerios box is the cover because it's got that nice thick cardboard. So you can do that too. And then also is you want to have some thread of some kind. So this could be just preferably it's yarn, actually. So you can have some yarn. Any color is fine, whatever your favorite colors are, or just whatever color you have available. But also don't be so, caught up in it has to be yarn. So this is what the yarn might look like. Don't be so caught up in like, oh gosh, I have to have yarn. It could be embroidery floss, the kind of threading you use to make friendship bracelets. It could be thread. It could be a shoelace, an old shoelace you have lying around, shoes that you're going to throw out anyway. You could use those shoelaces. I mean, ideally wash the shoelace first. Also, my kids came up with this great idea, floss. What an idea. Isn't that a great idea? So you can actually thread this with floss because it's pretty sturdy. And so you can do that to help bind your journal. So lots of options for that. If you have our kit, so those of you who don't have our kit, you may want to go wander around right now and looking around your house to get those materials. If you don't have our kit, if you do have our kit, then what you probably received are the materials here, which I have. And that is two foam pieces, okay, with I was going to say pre-drilled, it's not pre-drilled, pre-punched holes, okay, that match up, and some paper with pre-punched holes that match up, and of course our business card with our, so you might have something that said spread wisdom, or maybe it said spread joy, and then also we have two stickers. 4 little eyes, very tiny eyes. So if fine motor skills are not your thing, or if you're very young, we might not end up using this for your particular craft, but we'll talk about that later. And very fine, very small glue dots that will go with those eyes. Again, definitely a fine motor skill thing. So keep that in mind. So we've got all of our craft materials. While our crafters are getting those, I'm wondering, Jessica, can you tell us about some important values of related to an invisible disability? Uh-oh, I think you're on mute. She's working on it. There she goes.
Sure, Stacy, self-care or things that make you feel better are always important. That's why journaling is important. Also having a support system. You know, there's a saying in the disability community, nothing about us without us, which simply means that we can advocate for ourselves. And self-advocacy is one of the most important things about being a person with a disability. And if you are disabled, get involved in that. Stacy?
Fantastic. Thank you so much. You know, and sometimes I think too, you know, part of it is part of a value is that sometimes we just can't muster up the strength. We don't have energy. And, you know, I've heard this expression, I'm out of spoons, as something that we can say to people to say, you know what, I just today or right now, I just don't have the energy. I'm just out of spoons. And that's a way of kind of communicating that kind of fun way. Of communicating that to let somebody know. In our house, I hadn't heard that expression previously, but in our house, we used to say, I need quiet time. And that was our sign to everybody in the house, like, this is not the day, or this is not the right time. I just need some quiet time. And, you know, we all
Sure.
Yeah.
That happens to people. You just, you know, you're out of energy and you can't do it anymore and you take a break.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. But I hope we're not going to take a break now, because I need everybody's energy, because we've got to get to this craft. So we ready? What do we think? Yeah, I'm seeing Robbie and other folks agreeing. We're ready for this. So that is great. So the first thing I want to do, those of you who have our craft kits, just bear with us a little bit more. I want to get the folks who don't have our craft kits on the same page as us. Okay, so and just a reminder, if you register a week before an event, one of our craft related events, you'll be able to get that kit shipped to you. So it's something to keep in mind for future. But so what I want you to do is I want you to hole punch your materials. That's the main thing. So I don't actually, assuming that you have a full size sheet of paper, okay, of some kind or another, and a full size cover. If you don't, then your first step is going to be to cut everything to the right size. Okay, so let's say this is your material and it's not cut to the right size right now. What you're going to do is put your cover material, let's say your cover is smaller, maybe your paper smaller, either one, eventually you want them the same size to do this craft. So if your cover material and your paper material are 2 different sizes, you're going to cut them the same size. Okay, and one way to do that is to put one of them over the other one, the smaller one over the bigger one. Sorry, and I'm just realized I need to do this over here. Okay, put the smaller one over the bigger one, and then just outline it. And that way you know where to cut. Okay, if you have older kids, you might just be able to do what I'm doing now, which is I'm not even looking at where my lines are. I'm just cutting like that, right? Because I can kind of see where the one overlaps the other. But if you have smaller kids, or if you want to make sure it's precise, you're going to cut right along your line. Okay. There you go. And so now you've got this material that's the right side as your cover. Now, in theory, you have 2 cover pieces, one for the back and one for the front. In this case, I've only got one, and you know what? That's okay. right? The cover is the more important part because you want to decorate that cover. So if you don't have a back, don't worry. And you can always add one later too. So once you have your cover material and your paper the same size, the next thing you need to do for our folks without the craft kit is to use the hole punch, okay, to make sure that you've got holes in it that will go straight through. Now, depending on your material, you can literally just put the cover material and the paper material back to back and just hole punch right through it, which in some ways is the better way to go, because then you only have to do this once. Now, it may be that your cover material and your paper are too thick to do this. I'll show you how to do that in a second. Now, I also want to mention, don't feel obligated to do as many holes as I just did. Keep in mind, I've been doing this for a while. I've been a professional crafter for a long, long time. So mine were pretty much even. I did it without having to, measure anything. Don't stress out too much about that, how many holes you have, how much the spacing is. Just as long as you have, I would say 2 to 5 holes, 2 to 6 holes for a smaller thing, probably the same amount for a larger piece as well. You just want to be able to bind it in some way. Okay. And the holes are going to allow you to do that. If the materials are too thick to do together, then you'll take, for example, here I have one piece of paper that was my cover material. Okay. I folded it. So this is also for those whose paper is full-size paper. Okay. You're going to fold it over. I'll give you a minute to do that. Fold that over. And then you're going to go ahead. And once again, I started the hole punch so you can see here. You're going to then do the rest of the hole punching. Hole punch the wrong way. Okay. So now this is your cover material, but you still have to do your paper. So in that case, what you want to do is ideally put your paper, and I would say you can have anywhere between 5 to 10 sheets of paper. You can do more if you have a pretty solid hole punch, but sometimes hole punches really cannot handle too much more paper. So let's say you have a full-size sheet of loose leaf or a full-size sheet of copy paper, fold it in half, and you're going to put it in your cover that you previously folded in half. That way you know where the holes are. And then you're going to hole punch through where those holes are. Now you see mine's a little thick, so it's a little harder for me to do. You can see me wincing as I'm doing it, need some extra strength. If that's the case, you can literally just take out a few of the pieces. And you're going to see when I take out some pieces, suddenly I'm not going to wince as much anymore when I do it, because now it's so much easier. So if it's too thick for the hole punch, it's okay. You can just take out a few pieces of paper, and then you can, if you want more, you just keep doing that until you get the number of papers you want inside your journal. So, you want 50 sheets, you can do this for a really long time and you'd have lots of sheets hole punched. But for our purposes, I'd say 5 to 10 is what you're really going for. The other thing I would mention, 2 things. One is you actually don't have to fold it. You can totally make your journal just with the loose leaf. Look how cool that is. It already has the holes for you, right? So you can just do this craft with the loose leaf. Even if you don't have a cover, we can do this craft just with loose leaf like this, okay? One other thing I want to mention, let's say you don't have loose leaf and you want to do this project, and actually my graph paper also has holes in it. You want to do this project with, you have a piece of paper, but you don't have a hole punch. Okay, so you don't have anything that has holes in it automatically, and you don't have a hole punch. This is the cheap way to make holes in your paper, okay? A little harder for younger kids, so keep that in mind. Take your paper, okay, fold a little piece of it over on one side, I'd say about 1 inch. You're going to use your scissor to create a diamond shape. Well, let's see if you can see it. Does that show? Robbie, can you see that little diamond shape? Jessica, can you see that on this? Maybe if I do.
Yes.
Yeah, you can see that. So there you go.
Yeah.
Do that on the other side. Fold it a little bit. You don't want to crease it a lot because you'll see the crease in the final product. So crease it just a little bit. There's your diamond shape. And then you can see that that's there. And then you can do one in the middle the same way. So you don't even need a hole punch. Totally fine. Okay. And now you've got your holes. Okay. So now, I know that it took a little while for us to get here, but now everybody is going to be more or less on the same page. We all have, in theory, a cover of some kind and paper of some kind. Okay, which is exactly where we want to be for this graph. Now, all of my friends and my crafters here who have the kit, now you guys get to have some fun too. Okay, so here we are. We have our kit. And again, this is what we're making. Those of you who have it at home, don't worry, you're going to make something that's very similar to this. Okay, so for step one, what we want to do is take our foam sheets and let's see, we want to line our foam sheets up, or whatever your cover is, up with your paper. Okay, so they're already hole punched. Okay, so we want to line them up with each other. So you're going to put your paper inside your cover. Okay. Now notice I pat it down like this, but then it doesn't line up. The holes actually didn't line up. So it's going to take a little bit of maneuvering to make sure you put it so that your holes of your paper line up. So give it a minute to try to figure that out. You can see I'm doing it here. I'm looking, okay, this is where they line up. If there's a few pieces that you can't see line up well, feel free to take them out. But for the most part, everybody's kit should come with it. So I don't know if you can see now. Put it this way for you. You can see the contrast there, hopefully. The holes line up. So once your holes line up, sorry, and in your kit, and actually I'm going to use my floss to show you. In your kit, you also had a piece of string, a piece of yarn as well. That's two pieces of yarn. So next step, after you've lined up your journal, next step is pick the color of yarn that you prefer. So you have two in there. So you can pick whichever one you prefer. It's entirely up to you. So you can go ahead and pick your favorite, pick your preferred color for that. Once you have that, it's important for you to know where is this. I'm going to call it the shoelace end. Okay. So there is an end of your yarn that looks like a shoelace. If you received our kit. Okay. So take that shoelace end and you're going to, that is going to be kind of like a needle for you. You're going to use that shoelace end. I don't have it here. You're going to use that end that looks like a shoelace. And that's what you're going to be sewing through your craft. So before we get started, let me just see here for a second. Before we get started with that. Yeah. So, okay. So fantastic. One of the things you're going to want to do is just make sure that you're aligning these two pieces the whole time you're doing the craft. So you're going to hold it tightly until we get the first string in. You're going to hold this very tightly. Okay. Yeah. Jessica, do you want to tell us anything about about invisible disability while folks are lining their journals? Maybe specific, or not, it's fine.
No, it's okay. There are a lot of invisible disabilities, you know. And by the way, folks that you would never think have invisible disabilities, like Venus Williams had connective tissue disease. Albert Einstein had dyslexia. So it's pretty cool, you know, that a famous tennis player and the most brilliant theoretical physicist both have disabilities that affect the way their physical and the way their brain works. So
And I didn't know those, but I guess that makes sense, right? That's why we call them invisible disabilities, because we wouldn't know. And I wouldn't have associated an invisible disability with folks as strong as and independent as Albert Einstein and Venus Williams. That's amazing. But again, that's why it's called invisible, right? Thank you for sharing that. I think that bought us some time while folks were aligning up their materials. So now that you have it and you picked your preferred color of yarn, we're going to get started. And I want to say, do start at the top of your craft, okay? That would be great. And so you're going to start there and put in your string. So you're going to take your string shoelace end first, okay, and put it through your hole. It doesn't really matter whether you start in the front or you start in the back. It doesn't really matter that much. So let's see. Okay, so you're going to put your string shoelace end first, and I'm just using this alternative so you can see kind of how to do it with different materials. So you're putting in your shoelace end first, and I want you to pull it out about, depending on the length of your material, I would say about 6 inches, or the size of your hand, a little bit longer than your hand. Another way to look at it is a little bit longer than the length of the journal material you have. So if you did a full piece of paper at home, then you may want to have this, much longer than I have it right now to cover that full piece of paper. So you're going to do that, and you're going to tie a knot right from the beginning. But the key is, I want to make sure you can see me doing it. The key is that you're going to tie that knot and leave that string hanging off. And you may be like, why do I want a long string hanging off? This is going to be your bookmark, okay? That will be your bookmark in the end, which is kind of cool. Let's say you were writing something and your parent calls you for dinner. You can okay, let me just put my bookmark here and hold my spot. Now, when you come back, you know where your bookmark is, and you open it back up again, right to where you left off. So you've tied a knot, okay? And for those of you who may or may not know how to tie a knot, we can do that quick. So you big loop on top with one of the strings, pull the end of that string around the other one and through the hole. Okay, so kind of doing that in slow motion there for you. And ideally, you're going to want to do that twice. Try to get it as close to the journal as possible, so it's nice and tight. Okay, do that one more time. So make a loop. Take the bottom of that loop's string, wrap it around the other string, and then pull it back through it. And then pull both ends. Okay, so now you have your bookmark end that's just dangling there, but you're going to work with the longer end. Okay, so you're going to go ahead and work with that longer end for the rest of it. So let's see. While we do the longer end, okay, this is what's going to take probably the most time of the craft, is doing the rest of this journal through. What you're going to want to do is take your long end, and you're going to again try to line up those holes. Now it's easier because you have that first one in, and so we put the one string through the hole, we pulled it out, and then we're making the knot. Okay, so let me show everybody at the main screen again. Okay, so to make the knot, what we're going to do, it's a little harder to do it because I'm doing it in the air. So for younger kids, doing it in the air is going to be really tough. So any parents out there should definitely be helping with this part. But I'm doing it kind of in the air. You can do it flat on the ground too, but if I do it flat on the ground right now, I'm not sure if you can see me as well. Oh, here you go. If I do it in the air, I'm making a loop. I'm wrapping the end of that loop through the other string, and then pulling. That's my knot,
Okay.
okay? So one more time, I'm making kind of a loop with one string. I'm taking the end of that string and pulling it through the hole, and then pull both ends. I'm going to do it on the ground. I think you can see me if I do it over here. So one more time, a loop. Pull the end of that loop string through, and then pull the two together. Okay. By the way, Robbie, any questions? Anybody out there, or everybody's okay?
Seems like everybody's doing okay.
Fantastic.
Any questions, anybody?
Okay, great. So the next part is, let me show you guys, and I'm going to show you on the close-up, and apologies, I'll definitely make sure to show you on the main screen as well, but I'll show you close-up first. Is align, make sure your holes are aligned, okay? And then when your holes are aligned, you're going to take, again, we're using the shoelace end of the string, ideally. If you happened to tie the short end as the shoelace end, it is totally fine. That is not a problem at all, because eventually you can cut off that, you would possibly cut off that shoelace end anyway. So don't worry about it. It's a little bit easier for smaller kids if they use the shoelace end. So you're going to take the end of your string, and you're going to go ahead, make sure your holes are aligned. Okay, and that may take some wiggle room and patience, but make sure your holes are aligned. And I'll just show you here, if you can see on that close-up screen that my holes are aligned. And you're going to take your string, and you can go forward or backward, doesn't really matter. And you're going to push your string through the hole, the long end of the string, because you need enough of the string to get you through this whole craft. So you're taking the
Could you move your hands in front of the camera a little bit further?
Oh, yeah, thank you for
little
letting
bit.
me know. There you go. So I'm going to do that again for you all. So you're taking the long end of your string and putting it through. You want to hold tight, hold it, push it through. Or if you go backwards, you can, I guess, pull it through, but push it through those holes. You can see that here, I'm going to put it on a dark background so you can see a little bit better. So you can see my string coming out, and then you're going to pull it. Oops. Caught, but that's okay. Okay. And you're going to pull your string. This is the same thing you're going to do for the entire craft. So I'm going to show one more time at the big camera to make sure folks can see it here. Okay, let's see. I'm going to try it this angle. Okay, so a little close up here. Okay, so you've got your holes lined up. Oops, you've got your holes lined up, and you're going to take your string, and you're really going to, sorry there, you're going to take your string and you're going to put your holes, put your string through the hole. Okay. Put your string through the hole. Okay, that's why it's important for the holes to line up, otherwise it's not as easy. But if you have the shoelace, it's definitely easier. You see the string comes out the other side, and then you're going to pull. Okay. Fantastic. Now you've still got that other string dangling off. That's your bookmark, so that's no problem. And you have this whole long string. So the rest of this, and I know I want to hear some more from Jessica, because we have important topics of discussion to talk about with you all. But while we're talking, I want to make sure you're going to go ahead and do the whole rest of however many holes you have. You're going to go do the rest of it, and it's the exact same process. Put the string through the hole. Oops. Put your string. If for some reason your string gets frayed, my floss turned bendy. I don't know if you folks can see it. Let me see. Nope. There you go. My floss is a little bent, so I'm just going to cut the tip of it off. You can do that with your string too. If for some reason it gets frayed, easy to just cut a little bit of the tip off. So once again, you're going to keep doing that. Keep going through with your string all the way till you get to the bottom, and then you're going to wait till the next instruction. If you want a little bit of a fancier look in your journal, okay, this is entirely optional. Maybe something, if you have older kids, you might want to do it this way, or just for you to know for the future. if you want a little fancier, this is what you would do. Instead of doing it just straight down, okay? You would do it around the binding. Okay, so I'm showing it on this, you do it around the binding. And I'm going to show it on the big screen. Let's show you here. You would do it around the binding that way. So I'm going to go back to my small screen here, and I'm going to show it to you that way. So around the binding, put it through your holes. Okay. And there we go. Put it through your holes. You see how that makes a kind of cool angle there? And then you would do your next one. If you already started doing it the other way and you're like, oh, wow, I really like that way instead, you know what? You could just undo it and go back, because that first knot's going to hold you nice and solid. Okay, so if you prefer this kind of binding, you can go back, keep this first knot here, and then do the rest of it. So those are two different styles of binding your journal. Having said all that, I wanted to ask Jessica, well, our wonderful crafters are binding, and I'll keep showing you how we're doing it while we're talking, but so our crafters just need to go to the end, okay? Keep doing what they were doing. But while they're doing that, you know, Jessica, there's a term that I've heard about, and I just want some clarification on, and the term's neurodiversity. And I'm just wondering if you can shed some light on what neurodiversity is.
Neurodiversity just means that your brain processes things differently. All our brain processes things differently. But some people are more hyper-focused, like people on the autism spectrum, like Asperger's, or people with ADHD or ADD. They're hyper-focused on different things, so they have different kinds of skills than the average person does.
That makes a lot of sense, and I appreciate the clarification on that. You know, I'm going to ask you some more definitions while we're at it, if that's okay. What is accommodation?
Accommodation just means that you alter, that there's an alteration of the environment or tool or flexible work hours that people have, or flexible school hours, anything that would make a job easier or school easier or school more equal for people with disabilities. It's all about equity and finding the balance between equal and more than what you really need.
That makes a lot of sense. And if you that difference between equity and equality is important, because if you give everybody equal things, but people have different abilities, then having the same, for example, equipment that's equal isn't the same thing as making it equitable. Other people still won't be able to contribute if if things aren't made equitable for them, so that they can accommodate they can have that kind of accommodation like you're talking about for their specific needs. That makes a lot of sense. One of the things I think people struggle with is what term to use. What term should we use to describe people who aren't, I don't know, let's say typically abled?
Well, I prefer the term people with disabilities or disabled people. There's also a term called differently able or special needs, which I do not like. And most people with disabilities do not like those terms. Impairments are iffy. Neurodiversity is fine. You're describing what the person is. That's all.
That makes a lot of sense, and I appreciate understanding the difference between different terms and
I have brown eyes, right? I have brown eyes, so you can refer to me as the red-haired woman with the brown eyes who happens to have cerebral palsy as well. It's just another descriptor.
That's great. That's great. And I think the sincerity with it is like really trying to understand too. Well, okay, how does somebody want to be called as well is important. This is great. I really appreciate that, Jessica. You know, but before I ask you any more questions, I think we're probably ready for the next step. So, and if anybody does have questions though, for me, for the craft, let me know. And let's see. I think we're pretty much on our next step. When you've sewn all of your pieces, and you can see I did kind of like a hybrid with mine. Part of it is the just straight up and down way of doing it, and part of it is the is a little bit fancier way. I just have to cut my end again. I never realized how fun floss was to craft with, so I think I found a new fun thing to do, new fun material for crafting. So anyway, so yes, when you get to that last piece, hold on one second, when you get to that last piece, you're going to do exactly the same thing. I'll just tell you first, you're going to do exactly the same thing that you did at the top, because you have to end it. If you just left it like this, it wouldn't take very long before the whole thing just started fluttering around and pages were everywhere, right? So you need to close off your craft. So again, I did, you know, the fancier way of doing it on some of them, but I did the plainer way of doing it. You can see here, just straight down. Either way is totally fine. Did not matter. I wouldn't recommend doing both. It looks a little strange to have both, but you know, that's fine too. Probably could make a pattern on it, alternate it. So we have this. So the next thing you're going to do is you're basically going to tie your end. Okay. So what you want to do ideally, okay, is take your end piece. I'm going to show it on close up first. You're going to take your end piece and loop it through the last piece that's attached to the journal. Okay, so loop it through. Okay, and that's it. There you go. Right. So that seals it a little bit, but it's not tied as a knot. Okay, so we're going to do that again, but I just want to make sure everybody followed along. So I'm going to do that same thing I just did in the main screen. Okay, so you're taking the end of your kit, you're taking the last piece that you have, whether it's a straight piece or a sideways piece, it doesn't really matter, but you're going to pull it out a little tiny bit. Okay, and you're going to take your loose end and pull it through. Doesn't matter if you pull it through from the top or from the bottom, pull it through that last loop you had made on the journal itself. So now you have that. Then what you're going to do is do it one more time is what I want you to do. So do that again. You're pulling it here. Let me show you. Pulling it through. Sorry. Take your loose end. Okay. Pull it through one more time. Okay, and you're going to tighten it. Okay, and what you're going to do is make a loop. Like I said last time, that knot that we all learned how to do. Make a loop. I'm doing this on the big screen now. Make a loop. Pull the short, the loose end of that loop through the loop. Okay, the only thing is you have to get the knot. This is a bit tricky, I'll admit it. Get that knot as close to the bottom as possible. Okay, so mine's a little bit out there, it's fine. Well, you just want it so that it's not going to come out. Okay, so I'm going to do it close up. You're going to make a knot. So that loop that you did last time, end of the string, you put through the loop. Last time we had 2 strings, this time we just have the one. So you're using the same end of the string to make your knot, and then pull it up. Try to hold down the knot part so it stays as close to the journal's top. I'll do it one more time. There we go, and you can like hold where the knot is as you're pulling close to the journal. and do that. So now you have this extra piece at the end. Okay. By the way, Robbie, how are we doing on time? Before I cut it, sorry, before you answer that, just so everybody knows, you're going to then cut, probably leave about 1 inch. You can cut it close up, but sometimes when you cut it too close, the knot can come out. So I always like to leave a little bit extra. Okay, so cut, and there you go. And you have your bookmark on top. So Robbie, how are we doing on time?
We've only got about 10 minutes left.
Perfect. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is the cover. Okay, now if you have our stickers at home that from our kit, you're going to take the 2 that came with it. And so for those of you who don't have our kits at home, you can see what folks got with their kit. You can see it here as well. Okay, so you're going to take your 2 stickers, and on the back, you're going to peel them. Now, if you have really small kids, you may want to help by just peeling a little bit of it. I like to just peel a little bit of it, fold it over, and let my child pull the rest of it off. If you're a bigger kid, you can do that on your own. You don't need any help, right? So you peel your sticker and then put it wherever you want on your cover. So in this case, it's there side by side, right next to each other. In this case, I'm going to put mine separately. Okay. So here again, I'm pulling. Okay. And then I'm putting mine down here. Okay. So I've got my two people. Okay. And this way it's 2 people side by side. If you have your own embellishments at home and you have your glue, you can go ahead and start gluing things. And if you have your pens, you can start drawing things. But for those who have the kits, we have one more step to make, okay, before you start doing embellishments. So just to clarify, if you got your kit, if you don't have our kit, now's the time you can write your name on it, on the cover. You can draw something on the cover. You can draw a body, you can draw a person. You can draw your favorite things, or you can start taking those embellishments that you had before, like the jewels and such, and you can start gluing those on. For those who have our kit, we have one more step. Again, this is the one I mentioned previously. This is one that involves the fine motor skills. So if fine motor skills is an issue for you, maybe you want to have a parent help you out with that, or a friend help you out with that, older sibling maybe, or you could just pass on that entirely. You could the little smiley faces have their own eyes anyway, so they don't need any additional eyes. But if you do have our kit, this is what you're going to do next. Okay, you received a strip that's actually glue dots. You can't really tell, but it does actually say glue dots on it. So you have this strip of glue dots. You're going to pull them off, and then you're going to get a strip that it's see-through, but you can see the glue dots. I don't know if you guys can see the glue dots on here. You can see the little dots. You also have, so you're only peeling one side of them. You also have your little eyes. If you have cats or other little tiny people or little tiny animals, be careful with the eyes. So they're very tiny, okay? So I don't know, can you see them? You guys can see them, right? So you're going to take your little eye and put it on the glue dot. Now I'm doing this on the close-up. I'm doing it on the close-up. And now I'm going to show you on the bigger screen here. So you have your strip of plastic that has the glue dots on it from the kit. And in my other hand, you totally cannot see it. But in the other hand, I have my little eye. Oh, there you go. My little eye, which you can't see. It's a promise. It is in my hand. And you're going to put that eye on the glue dot. Okay. Do that for all 4 eyes that are in there. You don't have to, you can do it for as many as you want. But there you go. Okay. And then what you're going to do is you're going to have to peel them. Now, peeling is the hardest part. Again, maybe helpful to have a grown up. Okay. The key to peeling them is don't let the glue dot win. The glue dot wants to stick to the plastic. You want the glue dot to stick to the eye. So when you peel it, don't just peel the eye back off. You have to really, like you're pinching it, pinch the glue dot itself, not just the eye. Okay, when you do that, you'll be fine. And then you're going to go ahead and put your little eyes onto your little faces. Or in this case, we have like a little frog. We made like a little frog there. Okay, put the eyes above it and use the 2 dots as nose. So you can do that. You can do that as well. Let's see. I know that invisible disability, while you folks are doing your eyes and embellishing, and for those of you who do have our kit, now is the time you can embellish with all of the other things you have. You can start drawing on them, writing your name on it. You can do all of that right now, okay? Well, we finish up the event. And one of the things I wanted to mention is that, you know, invisible disability is a relatively newer term, and even people within the disability community don't even necessarily use that term to describe their own disabilities. Sometimes they do, but they might not. There's just one big disability community, right? One big family. But even though invisible disability is a newer term, that actually, obviously disabilities that people don't see, may not see, or have been around forever. And so 150 years ago, for example, the National Institute of Deaf Mutes was created along with what's called the old French style of sign language. So even 150 years ago, which seems like such a long time ago, disabilities were something that people were dealing with, of course, and older than that as well, right? Braille also, which allows blind people to be able to see, really, to read, is like a bump symbols that are raised off of some paper or raised off of, you know, other materials that people who are blind can read with their fingers. And so Braille is an accommodation that allows people who are blind to be able to read. Yeah, and that was created in the 1800s.
Right. And despite that, the ADA was the Americans with Disabilities Act was only created 33 years ago. But there were laws before that too.
That's good. That's good.
Laws before that were for vets that came home from certain wars with disabilities during World War I. There was the Rehab Act that came along in the 70s, so there were other laws between that. So,
that is important clarification, because I was thinking 33 years ago does not sound like a long time ago. So I'm glad.
Yeah.
I'm glad. And I was thinking too, saying what I was saying before about invisible disability and that term, you know, somebody saying like, I'm invisible disabled doesn't really, invisibly disabled. I don't see that rolling off the tongue, right? So I think people often
no, we kind of all belong to a larger community of people with disabilities, and you know, whether or not you call us disabled or people with disabilities, it's okay, and it's just a big community of people with different disabilities. So
thank you so much for Jessica for contributing, and for our crafters here. We're pretty much done. You've got lots of time now to embellish. I hope you're going to use your journal well, and you have your bookmark so you can mark off the place where you were. One of the things I like to do with my bookmark is you can put a sticker on the end of it, which is kind of cool. And while Robbie talks us out, I'll show you guys how to do that as well in our close-up camera. But Robbie, I'm really hoping that our crafters love their craft, and they can feel free to show us in their cardboards if they want to, no obligation. But I'll do some decorating of my own while you talk us out.
Okay, well, thank you, Stacy. That was super fun. I really like the idea of doing these journals also because we spend so much time on screens.
Yeah.
And it's like so nice to have something analog, and you know, I think it helps me think, you know, it helps me just like think. Thank you, Jessica, also for your insights. I hope everybody enjoyed the craft. Let's see, we're going to be sending our infographic in the next couple days and as a recording of the video as well, which we encourage you to share with others. Also, please consider committing to a weekly act to raise awareness about these kind of issues. You can get informed by coming to events like this. You can read up on important people in history like Clifford Beers or Helen Keller, who may not have had an invisible disability, but you can learn about maybe the differences between invisible disabilities and more visible disabilities and kind of the relationship between them. Give people time to regenerate and take those breaks like Jessica and Stacy were talking about. We need to recharge our batteries sometimes. I know I need plenty of downtime. Be patient with everyone because you don't know. You don't know what folks are going through. Stacy's showing us more embellishments there.
Yeah, how to do the end of the bookmark if you wanted to. If you have two, so, and thank you for giving me a moment to say this, Robbie. But you have the only catch with the closing the bookmark is you have to have two stickers that are the same shape. Otherwise, it'll be sticky on one side. So just trying to show you here on the screen. So yeah, if you have two stickers that are the same shape, you can just attach them with the bookmark end in between them, and then you have a little bookmark end. Thank you, Robbie,
So
for giving me a chance to explain that.
Very cute. So April 2nd also is World Autism Awareness Day. So you can find out more about that. The email we're going to send you will also include a brief survey of what you thought of the event itself. Please take the time to respond. Your feedback is important to us. We're also going to launch a poll right now in the Zoom. So right now you should see on your screen 4 quick questions. Our next free craft related event is our Children's Celebrate and Create event about celebrating Earth Day. That's April 22nd.
Sorry, Robbie, to interrupt. I don't see the poll.
You don't see it?
No.
Is it there now?
No. Jessica, do you see it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
That's fine.
I don't see it either, so it may be like a Zoom setting somewhere.
That's
Interesting.
strange.
Okay, that's good to know. Go ahead and okay. Anyway, and yeah, thanks. Whoever can see it.
If you can see the 4 questions, feel free to answer them. And I see a question about the next craft, and you are right. Our next craft is April 22nd. That's the next children's craft about Earth Day. We'll be decorating trinket boxes. So tickets, materials, and shipping are free. So please sign up. To look for and learn more about Inform Your Community events, not just Celebrate and Create, but other programs as well, check informyourcommunity.org. Our next free event is April 6th. It's on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And if you're watching this video on YouTube, please give us a like and subscribe. Also, please consider donating to cover the cost of the materials and shipping if you can afford it. It helps keep our events free for those who can't. Thank you for coming and helping inform your own communities.